What's up everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So we're looking forward to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. It appears that ROcksteady has also taken steps to update their website, which is actually pretty cool. And like I mentioned in my last video, I think my perception of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is changing little by little. Now, for those of you who know anything about this channel, this is, in my opinion, one of the top developers in the industry. They're my favorites because they've made a series of games that I've been able to enjoy and play over time. However, with the Suicide Squad game, I thought to myself, this is a real diversion from their expertise because I don't think that they could do a multiplayer game justice, but I was wrong. Apparently on their website, they have their own little thing about Riot Response, the Urban Chaos game, and they did have a multiplayer feature in that game. One of my audience members actually mentioned that this game was one of those games that released at kind of the wrong time. There seemed to have been a console transition at that time, and the game just came out on the previous console and somehow did not get a lot of spotlight that was put on it. And so that was just one of those unfortunate situations. But these developers over at ROcksteady, the people who had formed the studio, seemed to have enough grit and passion, and they just continued going. So I have a little bit more confidence in that aspect. They've been able to make something in this nature that's been successful. But it still brings me to the position of, say, possibly how they didn't come up with a Superman game over Suicide Squad. And I think that's what I want to focus on this video, because there's an article here that's written from Comic Years, written by Taylor Bauer. And the article talks extensively about Warner Brothers having rejected the premise of a Superman game that ROcksteady was making. Now, my own premise about how Suicide Squad came about is probably stemming from here, but it's going to be shaky because, is this story even true? Is there any accuracy towards it? Because I think that if this is true, ROcksteady may have pitched a Superman game, which makes a lot of sense, seeing that there were a lot of clues that they were going to go the Superman route to the executives at Warner Brothers, but the executives wanted money-making trends, and so they rejected it. And then when this Suicide Squad game was pitched, it appears that they approved it, because the Suicide Squad game you're seeing right now seems to have a lot of the elements of trends that had actually started to spring up around that time that were really earning a lot of money. Think about the games that must have been out in the last 5 years. What games really did, dominate the market? It's a lot of multiplayer games. They were really raking in the cash. And so I'm not necessarily going to rule it out, nor am I going to make that affirmation anyways, that the Suicide Squad game was probably birthed from that particular aspect of the developers trying to meet a mandate from their publisher, which is Warner Brothers. Now, another thing too that you have to think about is there are aspects of this argument too that somebody might bring up and say, well, a Superman game is actually very difficult to make. I kind of agree in a sense, but I'm not going to go as far as saying that a Superman game is impossible to make, because already another studio that's not really a Warner Brothers studio had already started to take a project like that on the reins before, unfortunately, financial issues caused them to actually stop the development of their game. Remember, one of the developers who worked on this game actually went on Twitter and talked extensively. If you want to go ahead and search that, I can actually point you to why this game got canceled. It didn't get canceled because it wasn't working. It got canceled because it was around the 2007-2008 financial crisis, and they couldn't find any funding in their development studio because their publisher went out of business. And so that was pretty much it. It wasn't a matter of, say, we didn't have a premise for a Superman game. It was a matter of there was just no money to continue the project. And from what you're seeing here, it appears that this game project had already gone past the pre-alpha stage. It was already doing some really, really good work in terms of its development. And I think this would have made a solid game and a base, or a benchmark at least, or some sort of the groundwork would have been set to have more Superman games in publication over time. But again, I guess it's just one of those things that, for most of us here in our community, we will probably maybe have all the different, we'll have the different opinions as to how all of that possibly came about. But it's still interesting to look at and see that if a studio that was not even at the ilk of ROcksteady was already getting their hands on it, then it is out of the question that ROcksteady would have actually been able to do a knockout job with a game like that. But that game doesn't exist anymore. It was probably, canceled somewhere, and Suicide Squad is what we have. So my question is, with all of the expertise that Rocksteady has, I'm hoping, that they can at least bring something of that, nature to this particular game. And I think that, like I said, how are fans going to resonate with this game compared to the Superman game if that actually was a thing? And I think, in my opinion, the way I'm looking at this game is I'm going to continue to just wait for as much details as they continue to bring out. I am, however, going to try it out. It is Rocksteady. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be sitting there going like, oh, no, I don't want to have to do with this game. No. It's a Rocksteady game. So even if they make the game in a different format or whatever, we know that the mechanics will more than likely be smooth more than anything else. And possibly we'll get a good story as well at the end of the day. I'm hoping that their story writing is actually solid for this particular game nonetheless. But anyways, is it something where Rocksteady might be in a position to revisit a Superman game in the future? Because I think they have a lot of the elements to be able to get the job done. Even from this Suicide Squad game, you can already see that they have some elements in here that really does reek of super abilities. I mean, look at the way, Captain Boomerang is able to sprint through this game. Look at the way that Deadshot is able to hover in the air with his jetpack. I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, they're human heroes, but in a gameplay development and a design perspective, Superman could also easily have these abilities as well. I guess maybe level design will probably be the big deal. Like, okay, how is he going to do all of that in an open world setting with, destruction and physics and chaos and all that? But that's still not out of the question for developers, that are as good as Rocksteady. But I'll leave this conversation here. We'll visit the topic here in a few more days, hopefully. I plan on doing a little bit more exposure on the Suicide Squad game now that we're getting closer to Gotham Knights release. It is definitely something that I've been waiting for because it's nice to be able to get one out of the way and then move on to the other one. But I appreciate your guys' audience. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Talk to me. What do you think about Rocksteady Suicide Squad game at the moment? And how is, or how are you going to interact with the game as it gets closer to release? Thanks for watching. Peace out.